Hi, I'm Andrew Walsh, undergraduate chair of the Anthropology Department in the Faculty of Social Science at Western. In this short lecture, I'd like to give you an overview of anthropology, focusing on what we and our students study and why we think it's important. First up, an important question that I suspect some of you are wondering: what is anthropology? Now, I'm guessing you've at least heard of anthropology. Maybe you covered it in a high school course, or you've seen some version of it in action in a documentary or an episode of Bones. Whatever you might think anthropology is, however, it's likely you're not thinking broadly enough. And that's because anthropology is one of the most ambitious and wide ranging disciplines you're likely to encounter in university. Simply put, anthropology is the study of humans, people of the past and people of the present, in all of our social, cultural, linguistic, and biological diversity and complexity. Rather than focus narrowly on how we are biological beings or social and cultural beings, or economic, political, or religious beings, we focus on how, as human beings, we're best understood in a holistic way. That is, in a way that acknowledges how we're biological, social, cultural, economic, political, religious, and so many other things all at once. On the one hand, anthropologists are interested in what we all have in common, including, for example, our shared evolutionary history, our connections with non-human primates like this crowned lemur here, our capacity to imagine, create, change, and express ourselves in the worlds in which we live, and of course, the fact that we all share one planet. But anthropologists are also interested in how humans are and have always been different from one another, leading complex and meaningful lives that are shaped by our upbringing under particular cultural influences, by our relationships with the people around us, by the languages we learn and use to express ourselves, and of course, by the personal daily experiences through which we learn what to expect from life. As we sometimes say in our first year courses, an introduction to anthropology invites students to think differently about humanity by opening them up to the many different ways of being human. Now, I'm sure you understand from your own experiences and observations that there are, in fact, many ways of being human. It's not hard to imagine, for example, how your life, as you're living it right now, would be very different if you had been born under different circumstances or to different parents, or in another part of the world, or at another time. But have you ever wondered how all this works? How is it that we, members of a single species, people who have so much in common with one another, have wound up living such different lives? How have these different ways of living spread and changed over time? And why do some differences continue to matter in so many ways, for better or for worse, in a world of global trade, international migration, and new ways of connecting with one another that many assumed would do away with these differences? Now, anthropologists aren't the only ones asking big questions like these, but we are often different in how we try to answer them. And once again, it's our breadth that's worth noting. Let me give you an example. If you study anthropology here at Western, you'll have the chance to take courses in archaeology and in biological anthropology and in linguistic anthropology and in sociocultural anthropology. You might, for example, take a course taught by Dr. Andrew Nelson, our chair, who is a biological anthropologist whose research focuses largely on the many things we can learn from studying mummies, the mummified remains of people from ancient societies. Or you might end up taking a course with me. I'm a sociocultural anthropologist, where at some point I can almost guarantee that I will talk to you about my research in Madagascar, and specifically about the distinctive burial practices of sapphire miners in the far north of Madagascar, where I've been doing research for 25 years now. Now, on the surface, it might seem like what Andrew and I do in the name of anthropology couldn't be more different. Andrew is using cutting-edge digital technology to reveal previously unknown aspects of the social lives and cultural traditions of people who've been dead for thousands of years. Meanwhile, I've been using the oldest of research methods, conversation and observation, to learn more about how people living in the present in a mining town in northern Madagascar manage their obligations to their ancestors. Don't be put off by our differences, though. Andrew and I are both anthropologists, which means, as I mentioned earlier, we share a fundamental interest in what humans have in common, including the simple fact that we all die and that something must be done with our bodies when we do. Yes, our research touches on different time periods and different ways of dealing with the dead, but that's not a bad thing. In fact, we think that it's only by taking such different approaches to the study of people and how they deal with death and so many other facts of life that we can hope to get at just how complex we are as a species. However different they are from one another, remember, ancient Egyptians and sapphire miners living in Madagascar right now are all members of the same species. And we have a lot to learn from them and so many others about the many ways of being human. To be clear, though, anthropology is not the study of other people distant in time and space. It's the study of all people at all times, everywhere in the world, whether in Egypt or in Madagascar or right here in London, Ontario. We cover us all. In fact, what was most eye-opening to me when I first discovered anthropology in university is how it requires those of us who study it to critically evaluate our own assumptions about what's normal. And here comes the part that I hope might inspire some of you to consider taking a course with us. Studying the many ways of being human isn't only interesting, it can be life-changing in how it opens you up to a world of possibilities and perspectives you've probably never considered before. Now, it could be that what I've been describing in this lecture isn't for you. Anthropology may be about all human beings, but it isn't for everybody, any more than studying literature or economics or health sciences is. That doesn't mean, however, that the approaches and perspectives we take in anthropology aren't relevant to everybody. In fact, the great value of anthropology and the need for people who can apply an anthropological perspective in the world has never been clearer. Think of all the problems we're facing in the world today: racism, violence, colonialism, inequality, extremism, climate change, even COVID-19. Each of these problems is unique, and each needs to be understood and addressed with the help of specialists in a wide range of fields. But it's important to remember what all of these and so many other problems facing us have in common. They are fundamentally human problems. They are our problems. They come from and affect us. And given how these problems shape the world we share with one another as members of a single species, how can we possibly hope to fully understand them without first acknowledging just how complex we as a species are? How might we hope to address them in ways that we as a species might actually be able to pull off? And maybe most important of all, how might we ensure that the solutions we propose to these problems don't threaten the incredible diversity that has always characterized us as a species and been ultimately our greatest asset? If you end up joining us in studying the many ways of being human by taking an anthropology course, I can't promise that you'll learn answers to all these questions. All I can say for sure is that you will learn to think differently about who we are as humans and about what we're capable of. And that, to me, is as important a first step as you can possibly take when starting out on the rest of your life. Now, if you'd like to learn more about anthropology at Western, the kinds of courses you can take with us, and what our past and present students have to say about what they've gotten out of studying anthropology, please go to our website. I've put it up here. Or feel free to get in touch with me. You can send me an email at the address I've got up here. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next year.